Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to sample Russian cuisine with a dish that's truly amazing. It's not only the ultimate comfort food, but it's also rich in antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, and immune-boosting qualities. It's classic Russian borscht, made from fresh beets and cabbage. Yes, beets and cabbage. You know, for the last several years, my mom's been involved in a mission project in Russia. She's made numerous trips educating and ministering to the people there. She not only brought back many Russian trinkets to me, but this classic borscht recipe the church ladies made for her. And to surprise your taste buds, we're going to serve it with lots of freshly chopped dill and a little sour cream. I've got to tell you, even if you don't like cabbage and beets, you will love this dish. So let's get started. This is going to be fun and beautiful as well. Well, I'm going to begin by heating my skillet, which I've preheated a little bit just before the show, but I'm going to add a little more heat to it so that we get it right up on about a medium. Remember, you don't want your skillets too hot. A lot of times we just think that we need to put it on high to get it hot, but you don't. Medium is really good. So we're going to saute the onions in olive oil for a good 5 to 7 minutes till they're transparent and the flavors are released. So let's get in about a tablespoon or two of olive oil. I kind of get that mixed around. And then I'm going to get in an onion that's been chopped. Wonderful. And I'm going to get my heat up. Now, when you cook with electric, don't hesitate to just adjust and adjust, because you'll need to do that. So you'll want to get it up a little bit higher and then bring it back down a little bit. So we'll get those onions going. Onions are so good for you. You know, a lot of times people don't like to cook with onions, but if you cook them down, then a lot of times that bitter flavor will be released, so they're really good. All right, to that, I'm going to add 1 leek that's been rinsed and chopped. You know, leeks add such a nice flavor. A lot of times when a recipe calls for onion, I'll often cut back the onion and add a little leek. They're so good and mild, but they give such a nice layer of flavor, and they don't take as long to cook. So you're going to want to add those after the onions have cooked down and sauteed a little bit. So let's add our leeks now. When you chop your leek, a good idea is to hold it. I don't have one to show you. I've got some beautiful leeks over here to show you the leeks, how long they are. You're going to want to cut them off about right here and use this stalk part, and then you'll want to just take that and put it under the faucet and let the water run through it, because a lot of hidden dirt can hide in the folds of that leek. All right, we'll just stir this up. See how nice those are? And you're going to want to saute those a good 5 to 7 minutes. Then I add a little garlic. And again, I don't add my garlic at the very beginning because I don't like to burn it. Those need to get going. Looks good, doesn't it? Well, while these are sauteing down, I'm going to start my cabbage. So, what we like to do in this recipe, it calls for 8 cups of liquid. I like to mix water and broth. So what I'm going to do is mix that about half and half in a large stock pot. I already have some water going, so because we're going to be boiling our cabbage. So I've got my water in here, and I'm just going to use 4 cups of prepared organic mushroom broth that I bought at the health food store. This is really good, and if you look at your labels, you'll see that it's really, really healthy too. So we're going to get this all in here. And this aseptic packaging, that's what they call these, are so convenient, and they're healthy too. There we go. So I'm just going to blend that up, bring it to a boil. And when that returns to a boil, I'm going to add a half a head of shredded cabbage. Let's get these onions going. That smells so good already. I got to tell you guys, you've got to do this when cabbage is really good. You're going to think, Cindy, I don't like cabbage, but you've got to try this because it really, really is good. And I'm going to raise this temp a little bit because I want to get it a little bit hotter. Stir that up. Okay, that's really good. Now, what I'm going to do is get my cabbage in here, and then we're going to get that boiling. Now, this is a half a head of shredded cabbage. So that could surprise you, but you'd be surprised how it cooks down. All right. We'll just get that going. And we'll stir that up. And I'm going to cover it so we get the heat back up a little bit. And then we'll get on to the rest of our dish. All right. Look at these onions, though, they're so good. So now that my onions are sauteed down a little bit, I'm going to add 3 to 4 medium beets that have been peeled and sliced in long strips. Look at these beets, aren't they just beautiful? Now, don't worry, because beets can be really hard to chop. If you can't get them perfect, it doesn't matter. When the dish is cooked, you won't be able to tell. But it's nice to have them sliced in these long strips for this dish. But you don't want to shred them because they'll just be mushy, so I wouldn't do them in a food processor. Cubed would be okay. You know, when you go to the market, you kind of are dependent upon what the market has. So if they don't have big beets, you're going to have to cut down a little. You know, if they have small ones, you're going to do 4. If they have big ones, you're going to do 2 to 3. You just kind of have to adjust it. Beets are so good for the immune system, I tell you. They're high in vitamin C, iron, magnesium, as well as other minerals. They're just really, really healthy. Now we're going to add a parsnip that's been quartered. Parsnip adds a neat flavor too. A lot of minerals. You can see how this skillet's filling up quite quickly. Now we're going to add a package of sliced mushrooms. Mushrooms are really, really good as well. I got to tell you, there's several varieties of mushrooms. This is really interesting, like shiitake, maitake, reishi, and others that appear to help the body fight cancer. Can you believe that? It's just great. And they build the immune system, are a great source of beta-glucans. You know how we talk about the beta-glucans in the show a lot, how healthy the beta-glucans are for you. Well, that's because these varieties of mushrooms have a protein called lectin, which attacks cancerous cells and keeps them from replicating. So I like to use them in recipes that call for mushrooms whenever possible. Now, while those are cooking down, we'll check on our cabbage. You know, the cabbage is really easy to prepare. A lot of people are intimidated because it's so tough, but you just take a head of cabbage, cut it in half, cut out the core, and then shred it with a long knife. And you could do that with a food processor, but be careful not to over chop it. So now let's check and see how well it's boiling, shall we? We'll just check and see how well it's doing. All right, we're cooking down our cabbage in our mushroom broth, which adds a nice deep flavor to this. And this needs to cook about 5 minutes. Really, this soup isn't that hard to prepare, and surprisingly, it doesn't take all afternoon to cook, so it's something that you can easily do in the evening for dinner. Okay, so that's going to go about 5 minutes. You know, cabbage is such a wonderful source of indole-3 carbinol, which fights cancer as well and builds immunity. A lot of people don't particularly like cabbage, me included, but in this recipe, it's delicious. Now look at our beet mixture. Isn't that looking beautiful? So now all we have to do is we'll take the contents of this skillet, add it to our cabbage. It's going to be great. So let's do that, shall we? All right, now, if you have a hard time handling the skillet because it can get rather heavy, you could use a large spatula like this to scoop over, or you could just pick it up and take it like this. Whoops, I'm having a little trouble. There we go. And we'll just take this contents and we'll scoop it out just like that. Oh, those beets are, oh, I tell you, this aroma is great. There we go. Now I lost the sound of my sizzle, but I tell you, this is so good. Look at that. You see all the colors in this soup, and then once it cooks all down, the red's going to take over, and so you'll see when I show you the finished dish how red it is. Look how good that is. It's just going to cook down nicely. So now at this stage, I like to add a little crunch, so I'm going to get some green pepper in here. There we go. And I'm going to add a little salt, little pepper, and just the juice of a lemon, and then we'll serve it up. And oh, how nice. Now, I like to use fresh lemons because fresh squeeze tastes best, doesn't it? So good for you, too. So, what I'm going to do is just take a sharp knife, get you a good ripe lemon like this, roll it in your hand a couple times, and then just slice it in half. And since I'm using my neat little juicer here, I cut off that edge that tends to be a little bit tough. Then I'll take it, put it down like this, just squeeze it. Sometimes it takes a little bit of elbow. There you go. And perfect. And what's neat about that is it catches the seed, so you don't have to worry about straining it. And we'll just mix that up. I tell you, it's smelling good. Now what you're going to do is you're going to reduce your heat when it gets to this stage, and you're going to let it cook for simmer about 10-15 minutes more, and that's it. Now let's cover that so it can simmer, and let's serve up our finished dish. All right, I've got a beautiful one to show you. These flavors I know are going to be so good. I've got a beautiful soup tureen. I tell you, if you had a white tureen, that's the way to show this dish. It is so beautiful. It is so amazing. I never thought I would say that I loved beets and cabbage. You know what they say about never say never. The red color is so beautiful. So we'll just take that into this beautiful dish that my mom brought me back from Russia. And we'll ladle it up. See how the colors have turned all red and all of it has just mixed together so beautifully? And what sets this dish apart is the way that you serve it. And this is the trick that makes it so beautiful. We're going to garnish with a dollop of sour cream right on top. This is what makes it really, really different. And you could use a little yogurt cheese too. This takes a little bit more. Oh, that's perfect. Lots of freshly chopped dill. Oh, that's just lovely. And maybe a little sprig on the side here of my plate. And to finish it off, I love to take a fresh squeezed lemon, put right on it like that, take a little bit and put on the side of the plate, and there you have it. It is so beautiful. A classic dish that's truly as healthy as it is beautiful. You've got to try this one. And thank you so much for being with me today on our trip to Russia. For a copy of this recipe, log on to healthycookingwithcindy.com. Print it off and enjoy, and stay tuned because we're going to be back after these messages.